Okay, welcome to another edition of the podcast. Today is the 21st February. We have today a guest, Aditya Vempati from Mo Engage. Aditya, why don't you do a quick 1 minute introduction? Everybody knows Abhi, everybody knows David. They certainly know me, but you're the new focus on this podcast. Say hello, introduce yourself in about a minute or so.
Great. First off, thank you for having me here. Happy afternoon or evening, the rest of where people are. I'm the VP of marketing for Mo Engage North America, and basically my history has allowed me to be part of many successful SaaS companies like Amplitude, Nutanix. Been privileged to run marketing very early stages, all the way through late stages in some aspects, across various industries like SaaS, all the way to genome engineering. And really fundamentally, it comes down to how do you think about the customer's problems? How do you think about solving their problems and making them the hero and not your product? And fundamentally believe, go-to-market motions should revolve around what's the customer problem? Why should they care? Not why you should care. And always try to be outward looking.
Awesome. Okay, so today's topic is scale up. You've been a part of a lot of good companies. Nutanix scaled up. Amplitude went public. More Engage is a scale up. Abhi, you yourself have been a part before you sold your company of a scale up. I did a scale up. We took our company public in 2022. David has been a part of this as well. So there's a new concept. It's not a new concept as much as it is a concept that a lot of people talk about consistently, which is how do you go from a Series A? I'm growing very well. I've got a product market fit, but the marketing motions tend to change. And these companies, what we call scale up, from startup to scale up, approach go to market and marketing different. So that's our focus. How do scale ups approach marketing? How is it different? What are their go to market motions that are different? And so let's start off first, maybe with Aditya. What have you seen just different in the last maybe couple of years or even a year compared to 2020, 2021, just in terms of go to market itself?
Yeah, I think the big thing as you're thinking about scale up and what the big shift has been is ZERP is over, right? First off, zero interest rates are over. Marketing budgets have been slashed dramatically, and everywhere, everyone you talk to, efficiency is in, right? The new hotness is efficiency, and marketing teams are being pushed to be more efficient. And when this comes into play, when you're trying to scale up organizations, you're trying to penetrate into verticals maybe and into markets that you haven't, it becomes more and more outward looking, not as much inward looking, and then also becomes more and more about the prospects and their problems. And believe it or not, as you scale up, your product market fit actually erodes, and product market fit is never forever. And that's actually what I think is fundamental to scaling up organizations that in the past was hidden because you had a lot of budget to play with, but now is at the forefront, and that's why a lot of companies I think have problems scaling up as they go from like the 1 to 10, the 10 to 20, and then the 20 to 50, and the 50 to 100. Your product market fit changes. Your early adopters are no longer the ones purchasing, and those that are early majority are no longer purchasing. It's now just the majority, and you have to cross the chasm. And as a result, that gets difficult when your budgets are slashed and your product market fit is shifting because your audience is shifting.
Abhi, let's turn it over to you. You've gone from startup to scale up as well. Talk a little bit about one of the issues, which I think you are very good at, right? You're very good at the founder-led sales. And then you've got to change your focus. You've got to change your behavior. Okay, we've got to build an engine. We've got to build a motion. We can't just rely on the founder, selling LinkedIn messages or emails to do that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think Aditya nailed it. That what scale up really is, and that has come up more and more clear in the last couple of years, and people have started recognizing between how does a normal job of a growth and a marketing happen so much different than the scale up organization. So the journey of 0 to 1, like how Aditya is saying, I think is so difficult and so different than 1 to 10, and then 10 to 50, 50 to 100, and all that. The playbook which has worked at 0 to 1 complete never works out at 1 to 10. And it requires different energy, different playbook, different team, different skill set, primarily to adapt. And that's really, really hard to pace up in the organization. But going back to my kind of experience of 0 to 1, I realized that there's no other way than founders themselves doing the sales at the 0 to 1 sale. That always worked, and there's no There's no I mean, not that marketing is not important, super important, especially in a time like now where brand marketing is back. Like and we work with like marketeers, who are like both right-minded, but they're trying to adapt in the left-minded set. And at the same time, I personally work with a lot of left-minded quant guy. I used to call them, are you a are you a T marketeer or an I marketeer? The T market is all about like brand, all the kind of quick growth. Well, the I always starts with the foundation of data. So that's why the shape I, right? So with that experience, I sort of always think that maybe what we need to do at 0 to 1, is basically the most foundational work on which somebody or marketing could really build on. Like we have some case studies, some basic case study, some testimonial, something has worked really well. You found a segment. Now, can we like double, triple down without like breaking the bank? Like how Aditya mentioned, slow and steady before, anything becomes permanent, and your audience is a moving target right there. So,
David, let's have. I know you had a couple of questions as well. I'm going to start with the question. I know you had a question for Aditya, but before you guys, and feel free, we're going to change the format a little bit. Usually it would be me hosting questions, but feel free. Every one of us can ask questions. I'm going to start with David really quick. David, you're in the Bay Area. You and Aditya are both in the Bay Area, probably about 5 minutes away from each other, or 10 minutes, or something like that. By the way, Aditya, David is at Pacifica, and
Oh,
Aditya
okay.
is in San Fran. So, David, talk a little bit about just what you've seen in terms of the infrastructure. I'm going to call it infrastructure, although don't mean technology. I mean the people that go with it and the systems, the data that moves scale ups, because they're not anymore doing, let's try this, let's try that. Everything has to be measured, everything has to see an ROI, everything is small experiments that work, and then let's make sure that we double down on the thing that works. You're seeing that quite a bit. Talk a little bit about.
Yeah. So I guess one of the bigger shifts I've seen is uh, this huge shift from sort of outbound marketing based on email or costly events to more partner-led growth. And I've done a lot of sort of fractional GTM engineering, which is the new thing for a lot of companies. So I got a lot of sort of experience looking at how their strategies were shifting. And so this partner-led approach is a lot more efficient because let's say I've got a customer, so obviously they trust me with their money and their data. If I introduce a partner that has a unique solution, uh, that partner sort of inherits some of that trust from me. So like already you've gotten around like a big bend, and you're already like gaining efficiencies. So that's one of the bigger shifts. And obviously there are some systems that now support this.
Aditya,
yeah,
no,
I,
sorry, go ahead,
I
Abhi.
I was just going to make a point to Aditya that how you see the last couple of years. I mean, one is this growth at all cost is gone. Sustainable growth is coming. When we say sustainable, we're also trying out not just from a marketing like go direct, but also like this partner-led motion of how David is talking about, like how you see that, because in from your Nutanix days or earlier days to probably now, like I'm seeing a seismic shift in the partner-led motion approach, given that customer is also having a fatigue, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't want any new tool, man. Just tell me what's going to happen within Slack. Sure.
Yeah, so I think taking a step back a little bit, right? I think there's a bigger shift and also just like old is new again and new is old. The reason I say this is early on days, like I literally was a storage engineer. I was coding and I moved and I joined Nutanix. And I literally was an SDR doing demand gen where I was doing cold calls and selling infrastructure. And what it really taught me then was that Nutanix was very partner driven from day one. We brought partners in, we seeded a partner channel, was because it's brownfield. Everyone has storage. Everyone has VMware. It was nothing new, but putting them together was the novelty, and you needed partners to go into the ecosystem to do it. And SaaS came in, right? The last 10 years has been SaaS, and SaaS is new. And You don't have to own your infrastructure. Someone is running it for you. And so infrastructure taught me is like we're in brownfield areas. It's going to be rip and replace. It's not going to be new. And that's why partnerships mattered so much. In the last 10 years, SaaS has been enjoying this like everyone can use software, buy software, and have to set up infrastructure. So it was a lot of greenfield purchasing. And now we're getting to SaaS where everyone that's selling software is now dealing with brownfield. And so that's what we at Mo Engage and at Amplitude we had to deal with a lot of brownfield because everyone has analytics going to the partners matters because the partners have the trust of an audience that is used to fatigue, as you guys talked about, of getting hit up constantly. The partner has the trust. And so you're using partners in the ecosystem because of two reasons, as you guys alluded to. One, your costs are super high to go direct to them to get their attention. And two, if you go with partners, you have a higher chance of having success because the partners are being trusted by the customers to find solutions to their problems and deploy them. And then the last thing, actually, which I think is the biggest thing that often isn't talked about, there's no new channels of marketing. Like if you take a step back, there's no surface level that already hasn't been covered. That's why cost of acquisitions are so high. That's why CAC rates are high because channel saturation has happened and it costs more to get the same customer if you go direct to them. And you nailed it, David. You nailed it, Avi. Like partnerships matter even more than before. But the bigger part of the partnerships is, which I think a lot of people that have done SaaS that are realizing is you have to seed the channel. Like even in marketing, we now at MoEngage bring a partner into every activity we do. Writing a report, the partner gives us quotes. Then we tie that to a webinar. Writing a book, there's partners sprinkled out throughout the book because we need distribution. And ultimately, what has happened because SaaS has now become very brownfield is distribution is king. And this is a combination of the brownfield combined with lack of surface area. So, how do you distribute your content into people's hands through people that they trust? Your brand, that's why, as you said, Avi, like matters now, but it only matters because you can't spend that much money. You're not going to get a high return. So, it's basically like how do you build your brand off the back of others, which is what partners do great at. So, I think I maybe have said a lot, hopefully, said something valuable there, but yeah.
No, definitely. Definitely.
David, I know, Abhi, David had a interesting point also, right? Which is, okay, the data infrastructure is also changing, but also moving out and forward. The interesting part that I also see, back to the ZIRP question, right? We had zero interest rate policy, that's one. And now organic traffic from all the social media sites is also dropping. So there are a bunch of changes happening there as well. You can't spend as much money, but the cost of acquisition is going up. So what you have to do is to be super focused. Aditya, maybe David first, and then Aditya, talk to us a little bit about this ICP, more focus on, or is there a big change from ABM to anything else? Is ABM dying? Is it dead? David, why don't you go first, and then maybe I'll have Aditya follow up after that.
Yeah. Well, I think as I said in another podcast that we did, I don't think the core ethos of ABM is going anywhere. Like that ethos being, you know, target a group, personalization, like that whole one-to-one dream. Like I think that's all still alive and well. I think some of the platforms overpromised and under-delivered. So might have tarnished, yeah,
Yeah.
it might have tarnished sort of this ABM platform um, kind of thing. But yeah, definitely a focus on like what is my like core competency. Like even if you're selling services, you should know like what I do well and what I don't do well. How does that fit to my target audience? And then you need to figure out in granularity who that target audience is, right? So you have to have a wealth of data, attributes sort of across the board, both what I call static, meaning slow changing or not changing, so sort of sizes of companies, what's in their tech stack, stuff like that, and then like fast moving, so what people are calling signals now. Um, and so you have to have a wealth of information to target these people. And the spray and pray, like you're saying, or like you were alluding to, is super expensive now. Um, but if you're focused, then I think you'll get definitely a payback.
Aditya?
Yeah, I think stepping back, I would say like as David said, right? David, you made a call. Like there was a promise of ABM.
Yeah.
And the promise of ABM, I think, was too early because not enough brownfield was there for ABM to be successful. I think it's one of those like timing things because now if you look back and you look at like demand base and stuff, they're probably like, damn, I wish like now because now their business it's booming, but it's booming in different ways and they've gone to intense signals and not like the ABM orchestration plays that they like came out doing, right? And so like for me, it's like ABM is going to work. Um, but the bigger thing with ABM, and I would love to hear what you guys say, right? Is a lot of the ABM plays I'm seeing and what we're trying to change, and it's consciously takes effort. This is not easy, is to stop talking about you and what you do. Like even in ABM plays, like our inherent thing is to say this is our product, this is why we're awesome. And even in an ABM play, that's not going to resonate. No one cares about your product and what you do. Like it's so hard to like accept that reality. It's not easy. And I would love to know how you guys like deal with that as founders and people who are scaling up your organizations. There's a delicate balance. Like you want to talk about your product, but at the same time you want to talk about their problems. And in ABM play, you can do ABM. It's easy to target. You get in front of them. It might cost more, but there's a higher chance of success. But you burn that chance of success if all you're doing is talking about your product and how awesome it is because everyone else is doing that.
Abhi?
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's a perfect segue to a point we're trying to kind of make a point, going beyond the buzzword, although, as founders, it's kind of classic trap, like you said, right? Just follow a category, follow a bunch of buzzwords, or like make a differentiation. It's a balancing act in all forms, right? So my thought is that, like, which is not different than you guys, that ABM is finally here from the level of how data maturity and AI is kind of making it all kind of actionable. So that finally that technology and data availability is here right now, finally. What we have seen in the 1.0, which was only about advertising, and then 2.0, which is a little bit of like account-based experience, which is a little lot of arm waving, but a lot of like duct tape and things like that.
It was
It's
definitely a lot of duct tape and a lot of Fugazi. It's
yeah, right.
definitely
Smokes and mirrors. Yeah, for sure. And finally, we could see that happening. We could see that not just, I remember that old acronym I was telling some of these guys, like the FIRE acronym. I don't know if you remember, Aditya. FIRE was like some of these Everstring or somebody kind of coined way back, which is like fitment, intent, recency, and engagement.
yeah.
So if you have that, you gotta like focused, and then you have fitment, yeah, call it ICP, call it whatnot, and then you prioritize them based on the intent, prioritize based on how they're engaging with you, in all the kind of things you were talking about, and then sort of do an ongoing ranking. I mean, this is definitely could see now day of the light. Like we're already doing this for some of our customer, but instead of talking like this, you should do this, you should do that, because this they have heard over the years, right? For years, they grew up listening to this narrative. What we're trying to do is kind of deflect this a little bit and saying, how do you do ABM? So they say we use this tool, this tool, this tool, all are disconnected. We then try to build integration just to make things like wrong. What you should do is, this is an age of AI. First of all, own your data, own your signal, own your intelligence. So we're trying to make a completely different narrative on that front. We're saying, first of all, you should build this foundation in warehouse. Warehouse are free. It's based on usage, right? So why not like build all this foundation in your warehouse and then sort of pipe in everyone's API, this and that, put an agent, put AI, whatever you want, like to make it happen. Like we're trying to deflect the narrative by making sure that we're not trying to come across that here's a new tool to do that old promise, but to say like you can actually do this with using your existing data and tool. Like we've been toying with the word composable, but that's how we've been doing that. Going back to your question, Aditya, but I think it's a very interesting time, and what the point you made is spot on. Like, how do we still do kind of like it's finally here, right? Whatever you thought is gonna happen, it's finally here. You look at that Gartner, like, slope of enlightenment with hype cycle and all that. It's finally here.
I would love to ask you guys, right? I know Mukund, you're asking questions, and I like want to ask, what do you think has happened that has made AI more accessible than before? Like I know the interface is one, but like we did this report with Mo Engage and we surveyed 1,200 B2C marketers. Last year, when we did this, 24% said they're not using AI. This year, only 4% said they're not using AI. Like what do you guys is like fundamentally, what do you think has shifted? Like in either the mentalities that actually the technology, like what has caused people to say like it's time I'm gonna pick these tools and shovels and start digging? Like what's different now than it hasn't been before? And you guys talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, so or companies. So I'd love to know what you're hearing from that aspect, right?
Avi, why don't
Especially,
you go first? I'll give them my perspective as well.
It's really interesting. I love the question, by the way. I was just part of a delegation. We did this whole origin of AI kind of a tour with MIT, and then we did like a lot of CIO circles meeting, and they're like, hey, why now? Like, well, what has happened? Like, we'd seen two hype cycle of AI and then AI winter follow on with both of
yeah.
these. Now it's the third time. What really happened this time? Which and why it would not follow with an AI winter very soon? I mean, very similar conversation. The only way I'm going to address that question is I think this time around, I think millennial is what the typical buyers are, which are a little bit different than baby boomers. So that's number one. And then the marketing in which how it is being done is amazing. Like they just opened it up, a very complex technology without talking about transformer and this and that and this. Here's a toy. Just start using it free. No integration, no complexity, no mumbo jumbo of like tech jargon. Here it is. Even if it is shitty, even if it is bad, even if it'll have a fake response, but like masses. So the network effect, I think, of this marketing has just really made everyone like kind of, I mean, you can see this in the boardroom. You can see the market is shifting, the analysts, the people, the consumer, like everyone's kind of rally behind, which has never happened before. Like all this while it has like a waterfall, right? Best company, then S&P 500, then someone else, then some startup talking about some rocket sign. But look at like every week now there's a race. Everyone's kind of there's no boring time. So anyway, so I feel one is the millennial part that the maturity of this cohort we're seeing, and then second part is the way the marketing has been done.
I'm going to go just with three things that I have observed in the conversations we've had with customers, right? Specifically to marketing teams, not overall. Number one, a lot more, like you pointed out early in the discussion, budgets are being cut, but budgets are being cut not for marketing programs. They're being cut for marketing people, which means you have what used to be 10 people marketing organization is now seven, six. So the six people are asked to be more efficient. And the six people are asked to be more efficient. The first thing they're going to do is how can I do more with less? And the question is, can I have something or somebody do this for me? Image generation, video generation, blog posts, content, product requirements, all of that to a large extent, people are saying, I need to do in 40 hours the same thing. I'm not going to spend 60 hours at work now because you're paying me the same amount. You're just making me do a lot more work. So I'm going to use something or someone to help me do it. And that seems to be AI right now. That's why this whole copilot seemed to be an interesting angle, but it's gone through its own set of things in course, if you will. So the first thing is a lot of people are saying, I'm asked to do more with less. AI is helping me do that, number one, right? That's the first thing. The second thing I think is if you look at the investments that are being made by all of the large companies to be more efficient because they feel so if you ask any CEO at the high level, when I've listened to a lot of these conference calls from CEOs on a quarterly basis, the first thing is we need to grow at 10, 15% or double-digit growth, and we need to cut the number of people. The easy thing to do is cut the number of people to grow EPS. So what a lot of CEOs are saying to every team, do more with less, do more with less. Make me grow at 10, 15% and use less, give me more savings, if you will. And not just marketing, developers. That's another high-end, high-paying job. Instead of paying 100K for a developer, if you can make a 80K developer do the work or 60K developer do the work of a 100K developer, it makes it more easy. So AI is getting adopted there. Sales teams, same thing. I'm not going to take all this time to do all this analysis. I'm just going to use my LLM on top of that. Every team and hence marketing as well is starting to use AI or generative AI or LLM. So that means marketers go, okay, everybody that we know is starting to use it. I might as well market to it. That's the second thing. Adoption is more wide as opposed to narrow. Previously, it would have been one team or two teams that would have said, we want to use AI. Now, LLMs are being used by everybody. So marketers have to market to those, everybody who's using it. And the third thing that I think is just the accessibility has become so much easier. Previously, AI required you to have some level of technical knowledge, but now you can ask questions very simple as you would do. And the way it has been marketed, chatbots have been marketed as a question and answer tool. Accessibility is so much more now easier, which makes it a lot more easy for people to try it. But literally, it's like asking the question 25 years ago, why is everybody using Google, right? It was easy, it was free, it was cheap, it provided better results. That's it. That was nothing more to it. That's what LLMs are doing. But that's my thing I've seen across these three. David, do you want to take a cut and we push it back to Aditya?
Yeah, I agree. Because when I think about it, this AI adoption recently uh, is more like, okay, you can like chat with a bot now. I don't know. I don't really know if that makes you like a technologist or like an AI person. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's like what Aditya was saying. It's sort of the format or the accessibility. Because when Avi and I were at Xylotech, AI was like machine learning models, and so you needed to know how to program, but then you also needed like a deep math background to understand, what parameters to feed the model, underfitting, overfitting, random forests, like all of this crazy stuff. And then your output might be just complete gibberish. Versus now, like the machine knows, or these AI models know all of these ML models. They can program them for you. That's number one. Number two, the accessibility. I think these companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, they've spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're sort of going like the Amazon approach or the Uber approach, right? Where you create a service that's like almost free or very inexpensive, mass distribution, try and get like the biggest crowd humanly possible, dominate the industry, and then start charging, right? We're starting to see the $200 a month from OpenAI. Um, so
And I mean that talk about scale up, right? Like $200 a month, and I pay $200 a month to be honest with you. And I don't know if you guys do, but I feel like I have a McKinsey freaking analyst on tap for me that I'm just like, here, do this for me, do the research here for me. Now give me use cases that are common. Search the web and give me this. If I want to deep dive into this vertical in this industry, who are the players? It's like I don't need to pay consultants. Like I have this 200 bucks a month. Yes, please gladly take this. And it's back to what David you're saying. The scale up is phenomenal. Back to the main topic, right? Like they're definitely like, I got you, and now I'm gonna scale up with more innovation or use cases, whichever it is, to get more value or grab more value from what I'm giving you.
Is there a difference in scale up for SaaS versus B2C? You haven't done a lot of BCC, Aditya, have you? What is the difference you see in B2B scale ups
Oh
versus
man,
B2C scale
I
ups?
have not done a lot of B2C, but I definitely I think the difference in scale up in B2B versus B2C scale up is like you're not going to increase your ACV, like because a lot of all of our customers are B2C, right? Their annual contracting value, or sorry, their average sales price, whichever it is, like it's between the like 11 to like $50 per transaction. Like it's never really going to go higher than that for the B2C. So you need to have them be repeat buyers, and that's almost why you need customer engagement, right? Is like you need a way to go scale up where you as the end user in a B2C environment can deliver personalization at scale, whereas you're a marketer being pushed to do more with less. You need your tools and systems, back to what you're saying, Abhi, to have all the data ingested so you can orchestrate these things and do it at scale. And this is the first time in history where personalization at scale, the holy grail that's been there like 15 plus years in B2C marketing, can be attainable. Whereas B2B marketing, personalization at scale has actually like relatively easy because you don't have that many buyers. Like in an account, like you have maybe 5 to 10 people you can target. Whereas B2C, you're talking like thousands, millions, right? So like it is just like one is like, whoa, I can't do this scale. And the other's like, I could do this at scale. And that's what's led to another problem, which you guys can agree or not, like outreach and sales loft have destroyed like domains as well as like what a good salesperson is. I will, that is one thing in scale up that I hope like people get back to. Just because you have an AI SDR, that does not mean you should use an AI SDR.
Yeah.
And it's not because of getting my inbox like with crap. It's because you have AI SDR, you're ruining a muscle of the SDRs becoming good enough so they can be your AEs later.
Yeah.
And like that is so key and so fundamental. At Nutanix, we did this. At Amplitude, we did this. At Synthico, we did this. At Mo Engage, we're doing this. It's yeah, like that's part of scale up. Like you talk about, like you need that to happen. You need someone who has the torch early on in the company that understands the tribal knowledge, the tech, how they sold, and how to go about as the company grows to be there also as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
No,
100% agree. I was an SDR once, and that experience, like I ended up knowing our prospects' persona and then how our tech fit into their pain points better than anyone at the company, because my job was to get people in the door. Now, if you're
Yep.
robbing your salespeople of this experience, then they're just going to be a lot less effective and a lot less knowledgeable when they're trying to sell someone a product.
I mean,
How is the scale up going to happen, right? Like I
Yeah.
would love to like ask you guys that because you're robbing them. And then the other thing is like in scale up, I hear a lot of companies going, oh, they're smaller teams. They got to 10 million. They got to 100 million with 10, 15 people. That's great. But I would love to ask is many of those companies who got to 10 million are not going to get to the 20. They're not going to get to the 50 because they're assuming that humans aren't needed for these sales cycles because now the CEOs are being fed by Y Combinator. Oh, you got to 10 million with 10 people? You don't need marketing. You can get to the 20 million. Okay, dude, your early adoption curve is gone. Your early majority is coming in, and who's going to cross the chasm? But I'll
This is
stop there.
people, this is like people telling me Tesla is going to do the same thing that they've been doing for the last 10 years and got to the 2 million cars. So they're going to have to do the same thing and now they get a 50 million cars. I'm like, no, dude, that's not the way it works. Crossing the chasm is a big deal because the people who bought from you before don't have the same mindset of the people that are going to buy from you.
well,
You nailed it.
look at all the AI companies. You know, the companies we're seeing, which is like really working out well. Look at Clay. Look at how many people they have right now. You know, they're like billion valued, but they're like hundreds. You know, already. Or like that, like a multiple example. Glean. Glean is a great example. Look at the number of people they have. I mean, classic point. But what you guys were talking about, SDR, reminds me that this is exactly the same going on with like software engineers. You know, some of these dudes don't even know what Stack Exchange is.
Or Stack Overflow.
Oh, Stack Overflow. Like, look at that. I mean, you're like literally robbing all these engineers to like really like critical thinking, you know, just because they're like gamified and I'm like, okay, I'll get an answer, quick one, easy. This is like we're creating a generation what I used to call with my young kid, or like generation of swiping, you know, which is like, okay, it's broken. If it is not like one swipe away, it's broken. You know, sort
Yeah.
of how do you do that in like solving SDR problem or software engineering problem? And how do you then do scale up, you know, to in any form like that? That makes me not like people who has done that are like goosebumps. They're like, why are they doing this kind of smoke and mirror thing, man? It's not gonna happen like that.
And you could fall into that like idiocracy, self-eating snake loop, right? Because the LLMs were trained on what people were coding, but then people aren't coding anymore, and they're using the LLM to create code, which is gets fed
Oh
back into
God.
the feed. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, Idiocracy, that movie, God, it brings back, I don't know if you guys remember it, but good mention. Like, I still remember the doctor story where he's like, you come in and he's like, yeah, just step into the machine. Okay, this is your problem. And he's like, what? How do you talk to you? No, the machine tells you the problem. I don't know anything.
Yeah, that's a good movie. Yeah, I remember that as well. But listen, I think it is on the end of the podcast. Thank you very much, Aditya. I'm gonna make sure that we have you at least here once a quarter or something like that. This is always a fun discussion, you know. It was very good to have you. Thank you very much for coming, and I'm sure we'll have you in maybe in a quarter or so, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks for having me. And I think, like I said, I may have thoughts and opinions, but I would love to hear what, like, again, what you guys hear, right? You talked to a lot of prospects, a lot of customers, and in this scale up thing, like, I almost feel like I don't think we're going to see as much scale ups because I think we're kind of shooting the golden goose with some of the stuff we mentioned. But yeah, we'll see.